What people with high self-esteem know and do in their lives versus what people with low self-esteem believe and do in their lives. People with high self-esteem accept themselves for who they are because they understand that no one on this planet is perfect, and that's perfectly okay with them. Whereas people with low self-esteem are always worried about being perfect in everything they do and criticize themselves when they are not perfect. People with high self-esteem have learnt to listen to and follow their gut feelings, even if it goes against what others want them to do. They know that their gut feelings are always right. Whereas people with low self-esteem want to be accepted by everybody, so they often ignore or go against what their gut feeling is telling them, and then their lives pay the price. People with high self-esteem have learnt that it's important for their well-being to put their needs first sometimes and say no to others when they need time for themselves. Whereas people with low self-esteem feel too scared or guilty to say no, no matter how unreasonable another's request is. This often leaves them feeling resentful, angry, and exhausted. People with high self-esteem never waste time making themselves feel inferior by comparing themselves to others. They're happy if they know they did their best. Whereas people with low self-esteem spend all their time comparing themselves to others and focusing on how inadequate they are in comparison. This practice is called being self-absorbed. People with high self-esteem never criticize themselves for making mistakes because they know that making mistakes is often a natural part of learning, not a failure. And the more mistakes they make, the closer they are to attaining their goal. Whereas people with low self-esteem criticize themselves for everything that goes wrong in their lives, and then they tell themselves that they're always been and will always be a failure. People with high self-esteem are patient with themselves and in life in general. They realize that most things in life take longer than first expected and have learnt the valuable skills of patience and persistence. Whereas people with low self-esteem tend to be more impatient with themselves and in life generally, and will often give up the moment things become challenging. People with high self-esteem work on improving their limitations instead of blaming others for them. They accept they can't change everything about themselves which they don't like, but they choose not to over-focus on these things. Whereas people with low self-esteem tell themselves and believe that they can't change, so they never seek to learn new skills necessary to make positive changes in their lives. People with high self-esteem realize it's unrealistic to expect that they will be naturally good at everything. So they focus on finding their own particular talents and strengths, and then they utilize these to the fullest. Whereas people with low self-esteem feel they should be good at everything they attempt, or there's something wrong with them. They over-focus on their faults and underutilize or even ignore their strengths. People with high self-esteem are not embarrassed to admit when they don't know something. They'll read books, attend courses, go to counselling to get a new perspective on things, and hire coaches to be accountable to. They are proactive people. Whereas people with low self-esteem hate asking for help because they think it proves they're stupid. They feel helpless and believe they are incapable of changing their circumstances, so they never try. They are reactive people. People with high self-esteem talk to and treat themselves as they would talk to and treat their best friend, with kindness and positivity. They also soothe and encourage themselves when they are sad or lonely. Whereas people with low self-esteem talk to themselves and treat themselves as they would treat their worst enemy, with criticism and loathing. People with high self-esteem have learnt not to take the words and actions of other people personally. They understand what other people say and do says more about them and their character than about themselves. Whereas people with low self-esteem take everything other people say or do personally, not questioning if the problem lies within the other person instead of with themselves. People with high self-esteem are inner-focused. They do the best they can in life for themselves, not to impress anyone else. Their happiness is dependent upon how much joy they create for themselves in their lives. Whereas people with low self-esteem are always externally focused. They're constantly focused on doing well or looking good so that others will like or approve of them, thereby having their happiness dependent upon what others think of them. Contrary to popular belief, most people with high self-esteem were not born that way. They discovered that self-esteem is a verb, a doing word, not a noun, and they began practicing esteeming themselves by talking to themselves in an encouraging and loving voice every time they felt bad about themselves or life wasn't going their way. Most of them focused on achieving small and realistic goals instead of becoming instantly rich or famous. They got help from others when they needed it, and each time they reached their goals, they were grateful for them and praised themselves for a job well done. Most of them, they learnt to focus on improving and enjoying their own lives instead of seeking approval from others. And they learnt to live moment by moment instead of worrying about the future or regretting the past. Meditation will help you stay in the present, not the future. They learnt to be patient and surrounded themselves with good friends and mentors. They learned persistence and noticed their self-esteem grow as they grew as a person. They learnt that happiness is a moment-by-moment choice, not a place you finally arrive at. If you would like a typed copy of this slideshow to remind you how to increase your self-esteem each day, then please visit us at www.emotionalhealingcentre.com.au. Click on the Articles tab. And while you're there, please feel free to download 20 free meditation MP3s as a gift for you watching this video.